Well, I may have lost everybody. Sorry about that. My internet just cut out. I had to reset our router. Um, so hopefully that's it. We usually will have one of these incidents once every couple of months for whatever reason. So I'll go back a couple of steps and hopefully I'm not cutting anything off. So where I noticed, I noticed. Um, I hope I noticed where it happened. So anyway, let's reset a few steps. If you're able to hang in there, I appreciate that. But I'll sew the videos together. So where I am at now is I have created. Let me open it with VI again. So week 5 a.txt. So I created this file from the hands-on experiments for week 5. The hands-on experiments are linked to the lab page. The numbers are important because we're about to explore some commands where the numbers will give us a reference point that we will be able to confirm that our commands are actually working. So um, that's what we've got. So I didn't make any changes, so I can just quit. In fact, maybe, well, that's fine. Okay, so some new commands. So we're going to talk about head, tail, WC, compare, and diff, right? And sort. Okay, so these aren't super complicated commands. If you are a system administrator type, these are most useful for looking through log files that are updating rapidly at runtime. So you have all kinds of system logs that are tracking information about various things going on in the system, and those log files are constantly changing. So these first two commands, head and tail, are good ways of exploring your system's log files. Let's look at the man pages first. So the manual page for the head command. So output the first part of files. That's all it does, is output the first part of files. And then we can notice in the description, print the first 10 lines of a file. When it says to standard output, by the way, that just means prints it to the screen. So the head command by default will print the first 10 lines of a file to the screen. And then we also have some options down here. We have -c or -- bytes. Not going to worry about that one. -in or -- lines. That one's handy because we may not want 10 lines of a file. We may want only 5 or we may want 20. So that -n option gives us some control over the amount of lines that come out. And then I'm not going to worry about any of the other commands. So Q to quit. So I'm going to use my week 5a.txt. So if I type head on week 5a.txt, I'm told that it should show me the first 10 lines of the file. And because I put those numbers in the file, I can very quickly confirm that that's exactly what the head command did, is it gave me the first 10 lines of the file. Let's see if we can do one on a bigger. So there is, let's see, log, syslog. So yeah, this syslog is actively updating as the computer runs. But if we run head on, this is a little p path, by the way. So the path to syslog is / the root folder, var /log /syslog. This is the system's main log file. But we can also, yeah, it won't let me do it unless I am a super user. So we may work on that issue as well. Yeah, we will do that before it's all said and done. We're going to have to go in and be root and give ourselves some power today. Anyway, the homework question is going to refer to varlog syslog. You don't actually need to be able to read it to do this, but we are going to go ahead and give ourselves that power today before we quit. Okay, anyway, as you can see on our experiment file, the first 10 lines of the file come out. And then the head command tells us that if we say -n and a number, we can change from 10 to a specific number of lines. So this is saying, show me the first 5 lines at the top of week 5a.txt. And because we put the numbers in the file, we can see that that worked, which is why we wanted it there. We could try 15 lines if we want. And you get the idea. So the head command is especially useful for log files that are being updated in real time, and mostly for system administrator types. But as a developer, I look through log files sometimes, especially when I'm doing web development. That's when I find myself looking through log files often. All right, so there's the head command. It's a pretty straightforward thing. And at this stage, it may not seem super useful to you, but it is way better than opening a file that's thousands of lines when you just want to really see what's at the top of it or at the bottom of it. So we'll open the manual page for the tail command. And you'll notice that its job is to show you the ends of files. And like the head command, it will default to the last 10 lines of a file. And you will also notice that it has a -n option, which is to give you control over exactly how many lines you see from the bottom of the file. Another useful option is -f, which hopefully I will remember to show you that command, that option. But let's just use tail with the basic -n option. So first thing is I will use tail on week5a.txt, and what I'm told is that will show me the last 10 lines of that file. And because we put the numbers in there, we can confirm, in fact, that it gave me the last 10 lines of the file. And we can use the -n option. So tail space -n space 5 space week5a.txt. Should just give me the last 5, and I can again confirm that fact because I put the line numbers in the file. And then I'll go ahead and put a 15 so I can see it. And it doesn't have to be increments of 5, right? I could just say the last 3 lines of the file and so on. So head and tail are very, very easy commands to understand. It's a little bit artificial the way we're using it here because we just made a file and then are using them to head and tail with the file that we made. But especially if you're a system administrator, there will come a time when you will want the ability that head and tail give you to just look at the tops or bottoms of files as they grow to be thousands upon thousands of lines of content. Okay, so that's head and tail. Let's do, what's next? Is it WC next in the list? Oh, less. Yeah, so the less command. Well, let's use the manual page and see what it says. The opposite of more, which is kind of silly. So let's go ahead and look at more. So it's a file perusal filter for CRT viewing. That is kind of confusing. What the command more does, and we'll just use it and we'll show ourselves. So let's use the command more on a file. That file is not particularly useful, so we need to find something that's a lot bigger. Hello, water reminder, hello. So what more does is it allows you to open a file but not edit it, and it's useful for big files. It will let you kind of move up and down in very large files. In fact, maybe this is the moment when we should give ourselves more power. This is not programming. This is a Linux course at Butte College in Northern California, water reminder. So you're welcome to stay here if you like. But not programming, no. Okay, so this might be a good time for us to stop and go give us some more abilities. So I hope everyone watches the video this week because we're going to give ourselves some more power on this system. Yeah, so we're going to have to get out of here. So I'm going to exit. And I'm going to log in as root. And I hope I remember the password. Thank goodness I did. So I am the root user now, and the reason I became root is because I want to install some things and I want to change some settings on the system. So This one is important, so I'll do this. This is important. If you want to follow along and sort of get more out of these utilities. So we want to use these commands that we're experimenting with today. Pardon me for a moment. Okay. We need a little bit more power because we need to inspect some files that we don't presently have the permission to inspect. So we're going to make some changes on the system so that we have the power to do so. So I have become root. If I do pwd, you'll see that I'm in /root. That's the home folder of the root user. And I'm going to install a couple of things. Sudo. I don't need sudo because I am super user. So I'm going to apt install sudo. And sudo is, you experience this in Xubuntu. Sudo will let me give my normal user temporary elevated privileges. So I will be able to do things like the super user temporarily. This is like run as administrator. So I'm going to install that piece of software. I'm also going to install the improved VI and start using that. And hopefully everything just goes. So it's pretty small. For me, it is 41 megs, so that'll go pretty fast unless the internet drops again. And in fact, I will update the agenda to show this. All right, so stretch that out just a hair. Okay, so I added it to the agenda. We are installing a couple of commands, a couple of utilities that will allow us to do more interesting experiments with the commands this week. So I ran apt space ins. I logged in as root, so I had to exit as my normal user, log in as root with the root username and the root password, and then I apt space install space sudo. That's one utility we need, and vim, which is improved VI. I don't need to run that again, but I'm just highlighting it for those of you watching the video. So that's what I have done, and then I have one more step to do, and I'm going to have to edit something as the root user. So I'm actually going to use little p path to get to this file. It's called etc/sudoers, at least I hope. Yeah. So I need to use VI. So this is our first actual real use of VI, is we're going to go make a change in the system that will allow our normal user account run as administrator privileges. So VI space /etc/sudoers. So this part is a little bit complicated. Hopefully the video comes out good so you guys can follow along with this. Notice my prompt, root at Debian, and that's because I have exited as jboyd and I logged in as root. So I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm going to you can use the arrows or the J key to go down. What we want is this line that says root all equals all. I have the cursor on it. I'll move it around a little bit so let's see where my cursor is. So I'm going to go to the line and look below that. I'm going to go into insert mode, and if you're in doubt, hit escape, escape, insert mode. And then I'm going to add myself, jboyd, so that jboyd also has extra privileges. And then I'm just going to copy all of this stuff. All equals all. And I'm being very careful, and I'm going to press enter once to get a blank line and then escape to stop. So yours may not be JBoyT. It is whatever user you created on your Debian system or that was already there for you on your Debian system if you're one of the Mac users. But JBoyT is my normal account, and I want my normal account to have the ability to have administrator privileges. So JBoyT, and then I just spaced over, and then I mirrored exactly what it says for root. So this does not make me root. This gives me the power to run some commands that I wouldn't otherwise have the permission to run. Escape, 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 :WQ. So notice this red thing at the bottom. It says read only option is set, add exclamation point to override. I need to, you might want to see that better. Let me get that to where you can fully see it. Okay, so I'm going to follow its advice. So I'm going to do :WQ exclamation point because VI told me I needed to do that. And now everybody's good. So it wrote to /etc/sudoers. I added that line with JBoyT. Your line will have to match the user that you log into in your minimal Debian installation. So to log out, I type exit. And now I'm back to the login screen, and I will re-log in as my normal user, JBoyT, password. And then we'll see if, we'll see two things. Do I have Vim now? I do. That's good news. And the other thing is, can I elevate privileges to look at things? So I'm going to use the head command on/var/log/syslog. That's the one that I did earlier, and it said permission denied. Still says permission denied, but I now can temporarily elevate my privileges to run that same command, but with higher set of privileges, so that now something that I'm being denied, I should be allowed to do. I'm getting a warning from the system. We trust that you have received the usual lecture. Yes, yes, yes. So enter my password. This will happen from time to time. So I have to re-enter my normal JBoyT password. And then I get the first 10 lines of the system log file. So that's great. Sudo worked. Let's try it with tail. So first I will try to tail /var/log/syslog. Permission denied. That's okay because I have just now given myself sudo power. So I will sudo that command instead. And it lists the last 10 lines of the file for me. It won't ask you for your password if you do sudo shortly after another sudo command. It has a timer on it, more or less. So if enough time passes, you may be asked for your password again. Don't abuse sudo power, but it is easier than having to log out from JBoyT, log back in as root to do things when I can just sudo temporarily as JBoyT to get some things that I want. So there's the system log. And that brings us back to where we were, which is if I try to use the more command on the syslog, I'm going to get a permission denied, but I now have sudo permission powers, so I can sudo that same thing. Okay, so here's what more does. You can see that I have a full screen. So what I'm looking at is the very top of the system log. And then at the very bottom, you can see that it says more 26%. So what more does is it is just a screen viewer, but it lets you go up and down in the screen. I'm going to run it again. So if I arrow down, notice that more says 54%. I can also arrow back up in this file, back to where it says 26%. So what more does is it is a screen viewer. It lets you open a large file and then move it back and forth on the screen so that you can examine it. You can't edit files with more. You can't do anything with this command more other than view the contents of a file. But it's particularly useful if you need to spend some time reading a file and you are in a command line environment, because it lets you move up and down in the screen. To get out of here, by the way, you can just press Q. So why did I show more? Your reading only talks about less, but if you open up the man page for more, for less, it says opposite of more. So I thought, well, I'll show you what more is, which is a screen viewer. Less, by the way, is also a screen viewer. So let me do var log syslog. It's going to tell me permission denied. That's okay because I can sudo that. So less is also a screen viewer, but it's a more powerful one. So someone was just being cute. Someone made the more command to move up and down in a file so you can read it on the screen in a text environment. When they went to make a better version of more, someone thought it'd be cute to call it less, so they called it less. So when you say less is more, less is more than more. The less command is an enhanced version of the more command, which is very confusing because someone thought it would be funny to do that. So most of us are going to use less as our default when we need a screen viewer, but more is fine as well for most cases. So what does less do? Well, it opens the file and then lets me use the arrow keys to move up and down in it. One thing I like about less is that by default, it just moves a line at a time. So as I use the down arrow key here, it's just scrolling a line at a time through this file. You can page up and page down in it, but in more, the arrow key moves a whole page. In less, the arrow key moves just a line at a time, which is very, very useful if you're trying to carefully study a file. But I think if you type page down and page up, yeah, page down and page up on your keyboard will actually move a page down or a page up. So more and less, these two commands are simply ways to open a file and view them on the screen and move up and down in them. I'll try to come back to this less command because for system administrators, it has a search feature that's quite powerful in it. But for most of us right now, it's a command that lets you open a file and look at it. These commands, less or more, are most useful with very large files that won't fit on the screen because they give you the power to move up and down, go back to the beginning, go down to the bottom, which is something that we do if we're opening a large file and examining it for something. Like maybe we're looking for someone trying to break into a system and we can see that in a log file. This information in this file is simply information that my system is generating as it runs. Different parts of the system will print information in here at different times as different events happen on the system. Most of you are familiar with the log file, but if you're not, your computer is keeping a record of many of the activities that happen on it, which most of us never use. But system administrators use this information, these logs, to diagnose computer errors, user errors, hacking attempts, things like that. So anyway, that's more and less. They're just screen viewers, nothing fancy. But it's confusing. Let me press Q. It's confusing because when you bring up the manual page for less and it says the opposite of more, that can be confusing because someone thought it was funny. Less is a enhanced version of more. Do you see how it's supposed to be funny? Yeah. Okay. So let's remind ourselves where we're at. I was root for a bit to do that sudo stuff. I exited and logged back in as jboyt. I can run whoami to make sure that I am, in fact, still my normal user. I can use present working directory to remind myself where I'm at. And then finally, I'm going to go back into my week 5 folder. Oops. The week 5 folder, where I had made this file that I was using head and tail on. The problem for this file with less, so if I run less on this file, it doesn't go beyond the size of my screen as it is right now, so less is not particularly useful, which is why we opened the log file. Okay, so next command, WC. So let's bring up the manual page for WC. So print new line, word, and byte counts for each file. So WC is a word counter. This is how I remember it. It'll allow you to count a whole bunch of specific information, but how many lines are in the file, how many words are in the file, and that is chunks of text separated by spaces. You can ask it to tell you how many bytes are in the file, how many individual characters are in the file. So let's play around with some of the options like -L and -W. And maybe -C. So first we will run the WC command on our week5a.txt. So the information that it's showing you is not super helpful at a glance because you don't know what the 25 is referring to and what the 50 is referring to and what the 260 is referring to. So let's see if we can open up the manual page and find that information. So it's not easy to see, but it's in that first line of the manual page. So print new line, there were 25 of them. Print words, there were 50 of them. And byte counts was 260 for the file. So when I run, I get new line, word, byte. So week5a.txt. So that's 25 new lines, which is more or less a way of saying 25 lines. 50 words. So 50 sort of chunks of characters separated by spaces, which makes sense because every line has the number and a period, and then a space, and then an animal. So every line has 2 words on it. And then there's 260 bytes total in the file. We can narrow that down. We can just say, just give me the line count only of that file. So 25 lines in that file. Give me just the word count in that file. 50 words. And remember, a word is not necessarily a word like we think of it in a dictionary. It is chunks of text separated by spaces. And then we can get the individual bytes. And that should be the same as the individual characters. But let's see if -M. Yeah, so the -C option will tell me how many bytes. And the -M will say, tell me how many characters. It turns out in this case, they are the same thing. So that's the WC command. You may have used the word counter in a word processor like Microsoft Word to tell you how many words are in this file and how many lines is this file and how many characters. So this is a command line way of doing those kinds of things. How many lines is that file? Let's try it, by the way, let's try it on syslog. Oh, permission denied, so sudo. So the first one is the line count. So there's 132 lines. There are 1,325 words, which remember is not necessarily dictionary words, but chunks of text separated by spaces, and 9,872 bytes or individual characters on that file. So a bit bigger. Okay, there's that command. Now we have to switch gears a little bit to do the remaining ones. I'm going to go over because of the loss of internet, so I apologize to you for that. I'm going to sew the videos together. In Twitch, there'll be 2 videos, but on YouTube and in Canvas, I'll sew them together and make one video out of them, which is why I put the be right back thing in there. Okay, so you're not going to see me do it, but I am moving my way down, and I'm going to create the other 3 files from the hands-on experiments. And I'm going to use Vim this time, since I've now installed it, and I'm going to see if Vim has anything to offer me out of the box that is different from what plain old VI had to offer me. So I'm going to use Vim instead, week 5b.txt. So Vim's default display is different. If you look at the bottom, hopefully you're still seeing what I see. Yeah. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, Vim is actually telling me things that I didn't have before. It's telling me what line number I'm on, 0, and then what column of that line I'm on, which is 0 to 1. The all we're not going to worry about, but I think what the all is referring to is that I can see all of the current contents of the file, which makes sense because there are no contents in the file. So let's do 5B. So 5B, I'm going to go into insert, escape, and when in doubt, insert mode. So one thing that VI improved offers out of the box that VI regular didn't, if you look at the bottom, is that there's a display that tells me I'm in insert mode. That's probably handy for a lot of you who aren't used to using VI. VI improved, or Vim, will actually tell you when you're in insert mode at the bottom of the screen. I'm going to hit escape, and you'll notice that the insert message went away. So insert mode, apples, oranges, grapes, lemons, and then I'm going to hit escape, and I'm going to :WQ. So now I have, let me clear, so now I have week 5A, week 5B. I'm going to get week 5C using Vim again, because out of the box it's a little bit more user-friendly. So insert, apples, oranges, strawberries, grapes, limes. And then I'm being careful to do this exactly like the hands-on experiments have it, because I recall, and I'm telling you, I set these files up so that the experiments with the commands would be slightly more interesting to look at. So :WQ after I got into command mode. So now I have 5A, 5B, 5C, and then finally 5D. So Vim week 5b.txt, go into insert mode, apples, orange with no S on the end, bananas, grapes, lemons, escape, I'm no longer in insert mode, :WQ, right, and quit. Okay, so a few more commands and then we'll call it a day. Maybe we'll open VI and do those last things that I mentioned at the bottom. Okay, so clear. I now have all the files from the hands-on experiments from the week, which is linked to the lab page. So we have compare, diff, and sort. So let's quickly get into the man pages for these things. So CMP is compare 2 files byte by byte. So the idea is you type CMP space 1 file space another file, and this will attempt to show you what the differences are. So there's a whole bunch of different options down here in the description. There's a verbose mode, -L, print differing bytes, skip. We're not going to worry about that. Ignore, no. Maybe verbose we might print out. We might also try quiet mode, -S, and just see what that does. So let's just try it. And see what happens on, let's try 5b.txt compared with 5c.txt and just see what compare prints out. Okay, so it says that they are different at byte 16 on line 3. Different at byte 16 on line 3. So let's use less to open up week 5b.txt. I don't want to edit it. All right, so 1, 2, 3 is grapes. So the third line of 5b is grapes. I will quit less, and then I will use less again on week 5c.txt. 1, 2, 3 is strawberries. So that's pretty obvious, and that's why these files were set up this way, is so that you could see how compare works. So compare is telling me that at line 3 is where it encounters a difference, which is true, isn't it? Well, there's a later one, a later difference, but it gives me the first difference that it found, which is where grapes on line 3 in the first file is strawberries on line 3 in the second file. Let's try it with verbose mode. So verbose mode is -L. By the way let me go back a step. You can recall old commands by using the up arrow. So if you up arrow, it will take you back through the commands that you have typed, and you can go up and down. So I can go back up to look for old commands. I can go back down to look for old commands. And once I'm on them, I can move the cursor around with the arrow keys, and I can edit the commands. Take some practice, but you can actually use your old commands. I can edit it. I'm going to insert the -L, verbose mode, and I'm going to press enter. You don't have to put the cursor back down at the end of the line. Just make your edit, press enter. Verbose mode does nothing for me. I got to be honest. I'm pretty sure it's telling me like at character 16, 17, 18, and so on. That was not helpful to me at all, so I'm not going to worry about it. Let's clear, and then arrow up to the clear, arrow up to the -L. I'm going to use the arrow keys to go back right in front of this -L. I'm going to backspace, put a -S there instead, which told me was silent mode because I just want to see what that is. Press enter. I don't have to get the cursor moved back down. Just press enter. And I guess silent mode was silent. How not useful. So there's the original compare. We can also compare. I will use the editing. So I use the arrow up to get that command back. And I'm going to compare 5B and 5D and discover that they start to be different on line 2. And then why not compare 5C and 5D? And they also appear to be different on line 2. So compare is a way to take two files and determine whether or not they are different from one another. And if they are different, where do they start being different? That's compare. Let's look at diff. So this is compare files line by line. That seems a lot like what compare did, except for compare was comparing character by character or byte by byte. Diff says it's going to compare line by line. So let's just see how that might be different. I'm going to look through the options real quick. I recommend that you try them out. Output in two. I like that it looks at the -Y option down there. So I might try that after I fire up a few diffs. So Q to quit. So let's diff on week 5b.txt and week 5c.txt. Oh, I like this better. This is actually telling me like, hey, this thing looks different. Let's try it with -Y and see if it becomes even more understandable. Aha, I love that. So it's showing me on the left side, the first file, on the right side, the second file, and it is marking the spots that are different. So the arrow, the greater than symbol, would appear to mean this is something that has been introduced that's brand new in this file, and then the vertical bar before lines is saying these aren't the same thing. I love that option. Let's keep using that. 5D. So same thing. It manages, by the way, to identify the fact that one file has oranges while the other has orange. And then it also notices that this word banana has been introduced into the mix. That is super cool. Let's also try 5C and 5D and just see how they are different. So yeah, it notices that there are 3 lines that are different. So going line by line, you'll notice that it recognizes when there's a line missing kind of from one file or the other. And it also recognizes, well, they have the same kind of lines, number of lines, but these are where those lines are different. So oranges in one, orange in another, strawberries in one, bananas in the other, limes in one, lemons in the other. That is super, super cool. I really like the diff command. I just think it is neat. So there's the diff command. Programmers use these a lot. And system administrators can also use them for things like configuration files for users, for applications. If you're aware of its existence and you think, well, how am I going to figure out exactly what's different between these two files, because I just can't find the difference even though I know something's wrong. Diff or comp might help you do that, or in combination, right? Diff will kind of give you very visually where it finds differences, and comp will kind of give you the detailed data on exactly where things start to go different. All right, let's clear and do sort last. So the sort command. So sort lines of text files. Well, that's pretty straightforward. Let's look at the options. So ignore leading blanks. That's not going to be an issue for us today. Dictionary order. That might be something to experiment with. It'll actually give you the ability to customize your sorting with that -m, which is a month sort. If you have, like a to-do list or a calendar, there's a numeric sort. There's a random sort, which is just shuffling. We might try that, big R. And then reverse. So big R, little r are the ones that I want to try. But I recommend you try more. So let's just try it. So we're going to do less on week 5. b.txt, apples, oranges, grapes, lemons. Hit Q to get out of less. So now we can see that they are not in alphabetical order. So let's see what happens if we sort it. So it puts it in dictionary order. The sort command, by the way, does not change the file. If I arrow up twice to get my less command, I'll notice that the file is still what it was. So all sort does is take that file, sort it, and spit out the results to the screen. That's all it does. We can use the -r, which should put them in reverse order, which it did: oranges, lemons, grapes, and apple. And if we use the $R, it tells me I'm going to get a shuffle effect, a randomization effect. And I'm just going to try that a couple of times and see if it comes out different each time. It is coming out different each time. Lemons, grapes, oranges. Yeah, so each time it seems to roughly be shuffling it. So sort will actually shuffle. I'm not sure why you would care about that, but well, there's times when that could be useful too. So we'll look at 5C this way. So first I'm going to look at 5C as it is in the file. Q to quit. It's not alphabetized, so if I sort it, what does that look like? Yes. If I reverse sort it, which is the little r, yes. And I'll do the last one since I want to encourage you to do that. So I used less to view the file. Q to quit less. Apples, oranges, bananas. So it's not in order either. So if I sort it straight up, should be just in normal dictionary order. I can spit it out in reverse order: oranges, lemons, grapes, bananas, apples. That's correct. And if I want to, I can shuffle it. So there's the sort command. I love diff. But I actually use some of these things in some of my scripting, at least in the days when I was doing a lot more system administration work. So remember that sort of our overarching goal in this class is for you to be comfortable and confident at the command line. If someone sits you down at a computer and the mouse doesn't work and there's no graphics, that won't bother you at the end of this class. You will sit down and you will have some number of commands that you already know how to use. You will know how to use the manual system, and you can do productive work. You don't have to memorize all these commands, but some of the commands that you use, just a lot of, you will remember. Like, how do I do a listing? ls, that one's pretty automatic. Change directories command, that one's going to stick in your head pretty quick. How to make directories sticks in your head. We haven't really removed stuff much yet, but that one. So you'll end up with maybe like 10 commands that you use 90% of the time. And then you might have a vague sense of these other commands that you've experienced, which would at least help you to know that you can go do some research. And like, I know there's a way to view the top of a file, or I know there's a way to sort the contents of a file. So you may not remember specifically the command, but you'll know that these kinds of tools are in there, and that will help you find them, just because you know that looking for them, you will find them. Okay, but again, practicing just doing commands with the different options and exploring the results that you see on the screen. All of that is good experience. Even if you think, when would I ever use a diff command? It's still good experience because it's typing a command and understanding the results that you're looking at. Okay, so last thing, I'm going to use Vim that I installed. These will all work in VI, by the way, so that if you didn't get Vim installed, that's fine for now. All of this stuff will still work in VI that I'm about to do. So I'm going to open the original file for the last couple of things. Okay, so I'm going to move the cursor around. You can use the arrow keys, and hopefully you can see the cursor. It's on line 11 now. Or I recommend the HJ, K and L. So JJJJJ. So we're going to add a new command, which is G. I'm going to hit escape. So usually in VI and Vim, commands have variations of themselves. So usually if G is a command, then capital G is a command, and it's also possible that control G is a command. And usually all those commands are somehow related to each other. So I'm going to try G by itself, and nothing's going to happen. Okay, so G by itself doesn't do anything. But you can see on the agenda that GG in quick succession jumped my cursor to line 1. Hopefully you can see it up there. So I'm going to move the cursor back down to like line 15, and I'm going to type GG in quick succession, GG. I'm in command mode, and the cursor will jump to line 1. So now variations on. So G is a go command, a go to line. What if I do capital G? So I'm just going to hold the shift key down and press capital G, and I'll notice that the cursor jumped down to line 25. So little g in quick succession is go to line 1. Big G, just once, is go to the end. And then I'll move the cursor back up to like line 15, and I will do Shift G to prove that, yes, it goes to the last line in the file. GG, first line in the file. Capital G just once, last line of the file. None of these you have to remember or memorize. They're just things to explore. I use GG a lot. Just so I want to get back to the beginning of the file. And then the last thing we're going to look at is one last variation on this, which is Control G. So if I hold Control and press G, what happens? At the bottom of my screen, and I'm not sure if this is going to work in VI or not, but in VI Improved, the message at the bottom of the screen says 25 lines, 100%. Okay, so I'm going to move the arrow up to line 20, the cursor, to line 20, and I'm going to Control G again. So now I am at 80% into the file. So the line number doesn't change. That's the total number of lines, but it tells me roughly where I am in the file. So I am roughly 80% down of the file. I'm going to go up to line 15 and do Control G. That's about 60%. Line 10, Control G is 40% into the file. Line 5 we can expect is going to be 20% into the file. And then if I go to the very beginning, Control G, one line is 4% of the file, which means that the next one is what, 8%, 12. And I'm just arrow down Control G. So Control G, arrow down Control G, arrow down Control G. So Control G is related. It doesn't make you go somewhere, but it tells you where you're at. So they're all related. GG, first line of the file. Capital G, Shift G, last line of the file. Control G, roughly where am I in terms of the extent of the file. Escape, 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 escape. Q, I didn't make any edits, I don't think. Yeah, so that I think is all that I got. Thanks for bearing out the loss of internet. I'm sorry about that. If you're watching the video later, that's why there's a break. It's because my house lost its internet for a few minutes and I had to wait for it to reconnect. So sorry about that for those of you who are trying to watch it live and had to break away and come back later. So there's nothing new or particularly mysterious here. The way to relieve yourself of the feeling that this is a lot and that it's intimidating is simply to type the commands on the screen in your Linux system and press enter. Read the man pages, use the hands-on experiments to produce those files that I produced from the hands-on experiments, and play around with these commands to develop your own feel for them. Anyway, that's all I've got for this week. Sorry again about the internet snafu. I hope everyone has a great week. Thanks for being here if you could. Thanks for sticking it out if you were able to do that. Otherwise, I will see you on Monday next week, and let's all hope that we don't lose the internet ever again during the live stream. So have a great week, and I will see you on Monday next week.